People say love is blind, but I wasn't blind. I saw the late-night panic in his eyes when the credit card bills piled up. I heard the self-hatred in his voice when his car got repossessed. I watched him pace the living room floor, clutching his head like the weight of $46,000 in debt was going to crush his spine. And I, like a fool in love, told him we'll figure it out together. His name was Tyler, and he didn't just walk into my life. He barged in with guitar strings, sad boy eyes, and a past so shattered I thought I could glue it together with my kindness. We met at a coffee shop. I was working the register between grad school classes. He spilled his espresso, apologized with a smile that made my chest forget its rhythm, and 2 weeks later, we were inseparable. He had dreams, big ones, a recording studio, a tour, his name in lights. But dreams don't pay rent, and Tyler, well, he was always just a few dollars short. So I picked up more shifts, skipped brunches, delayed student loan payments, and little by little, I became his safety net. By the third year, I had paid off his two maxed out credit cards, helped cover back rent on an apartment he shared before me, and even lent him $6,500 to get his business started. It's temporary, he'd whisper into my hair at night. Once I'm on my feet, I'll make it all up to you. You won't even have to work. I didn't want a kept life. I wanted a shared one. But those promises, they felt like fairy dust. Every month, the debt came crawling back, and every time he broke down in shame, I stitched him together with loyalty because that's what love does, right? At least, that's what I told myself. Then, last fall, Tyler changed. He got quiet, less affectionate, started spending more time clearing his head. It's not you, he said one night, eyes down. I need to work on myself. Alone, my throat closed around the words. Are you breaking up with me? No. He said too fast. I just need space. I love you, Claire, I do. But I'm lost. And like an idiot and educated, emotionally aware idiot, I nodded and let him go. 2 weeks later, he posted a photo. On a yacht, smiling, cocktail in hand, healing under Maui's sun. Maui. The trip I'd helped plan, the flights I booked. On my card, the Airbnb I prepaid months ago when it was supposed to be our getaway. At first, I wanted to believe he went alone, that he needed the ocean to think, to reflect, to miss me. But then a second photo went up. And that's when my heart shattered in silence. It was sunset. He was on one knee, holding a ring, not the one I thought he'd give me, a different one, sparkling and new. And in front of him, laughing, teary-eyed, was another woman, not me. Not the girl who paid off his debt, not the girl who stayed through panic attacks and bounced rent checks, a stranger. She got the proposal. I got a space to work on himself. I stared at the photo for nearly 10 minutes, not blinking. Not breathing. Just frozen. My fingers went numb around the phone, my ears rang. I felt like the ground beneath me had caved in and I was falling into some dark, mocking universe where I was the punchline of a very cruel joke. My thumb hovered over his profile picture. Still the same smile, still the same eyes I used to trust, still calling himself Tyler, musician, dreamer, believer. What kind of believer stabs someone in the back with a diamond ring? I clicked through her page at Sarah Naxo, travel blogger, 1,000 followers, all curated perfection. Tropical outfits, matching towels on beach chairs, candles by poolside dinners, and there he was, appearing like a souvenir in her photos. My Tyler, her fiancé. In one post she wrote, he said he knew from the moment we met that I was his forever. The moment they met, I was still washing his laundry when that moment must have happened. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Instead, I sat alone on my bathroom floor, the cold tiles grounding me in a nightmare that refused to end. Every memory turned into a dagger. Every I love you I once cherished now felt like a rehearsed script. And then came the bile, rising, burning, violent. I barely made it to the toilet in time. My body rejected the betrayal the way my heart had tried so hard not to. The next few days were a blur. I didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't tell anyone. How do you even begin to say something like that out loud? Hey, remember the guy I paid $25,000 to help? He just used my money to propose to someone else. On a trip I planned. It sounds made up. It sounds pathetic, but it was real. And I was the idiot holding the receipts. I opened my budgeting app, my Venmo history. All of it. The monthly transfers for studio equipment. The big one labeled final loan. The Airbnb confirmation in Maui. I'd even sprung for the upgraded ocean view. All those late nights working overtime. All those silent sacrifices. The concerts I skipped. The shoes I didn't buy. The therapy I put off. Also he could propose to someone else in paradise. I knew I had to tell someone or I'd explode. So I called Jenna, my best friend since sophomore year. The one person who'd watched me fall too hard for too long. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, Claire. What's up? I couldn't speak. My voice cracked before a single word left my lips. Claire? She said, Her voice rising, I inhaled, then whispered, "He's engaged, he proposed in Maui." There was a pause, then a soft, almost frightened, "What, Tyler?" I nodded even though she couldn't see with her. "Some travel influencer. He posted it. I saw the photos." Jenna was quiet for a long beat, then exhaled through her teeth. "That absolute son of a Claire. You need to block him right now. Delete him from your phone. Burn every picture, you hear me?" But I didn't want to block him. Not yet. I wanted him to know. I wanted him to see what he threw away. Jenna's words echoed in my ears like a battle cry. But my heart wasn't ready for war not yet. There was still a part of me clinging to the version of Tyler who used to leave notes in my coat pocket. The Tyler who stayed up late helping me study for finals. The Tyler who once cried in my arms, trembling because he was afraid of failing me. I wanted to believe he was real, that he hadn't always been playing me like a fool. But facts don't lie. And neither do proposal photos with hashtags like hashtag she said yes and hashtag forever starts now. I sat in front of my laptop that night, lit only by the dull glow of the screen, scrolling through my email. Every receipt, every transfer, every flight booked, I cataloged them all like a lawyer preparing for court. And then I opened a blank document. Typed a title, "What I paid to be lied to," line by line. I detailed every dollar. $18,700, credit card payoff $6,500, studio startup $1,100, rent back pay $3,250, Maui Airbnb $980, flights for two total, $30,530, not including the interest on my own cards I'd maxed to help him. I stared at that number until it blurred. It was more than my entire savings, more than I'd ever spent on myself in one place. And now, it was the price I paid for betrayal. By the weekend, word had started to spread. I hadn't told anyone but Jenna. But somehow, heartbreak always leaks. My cousin texted, "Hey, saw Tyler's engaged, you okay?" A girl from my old study group messaged, "Didn't you two just break up? Weren't you supposed to go to Maui together?" And then came the real gut punch. My mom. She called me Saturday morning. Her voice light and warm, unaware of the firestorm in my chest. "Claire, sweetheart, did you see Tyler's post? Looks like he finally proposed." I froze. "You still talk to him?" I asked. My throat dry. "He sent me a happy birthday message last week. So thoughtful of him. Said he hoped you were doing well." I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. "Mom, he proposed to another woman while using my money. After dumping me." Silence. Long? Heavy. "Oh, Claire." That's all she said. Later that night, Jenna came over with ice cream, wine, and a single purpose, vengeance. But not the angry, /tires kind. No. The righteous, calculated kind. "We're going to tell your story," she said, "and not just to friends. We're going public." I shook my head. "No, I can't. I'll look pathetic, like a girl scorned." Jenna set the wine down and looked me dead in the eyes. "Claire, you didn't just get your heart broken. You got robbed, and he gets to ride into the sunset with your money." And her finger blinked out, "From your sacrifices. No. Hell no. Not on my watch." She had a point. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth. So I wrote. For hours. Through tears, through shaking hands, I wrote every moment from the day we met to the last text he ever sent. And Jenna helped me post it all anonymously on a platform where people shared stories of betrayal. We called it "When Love Costs $30,000. By morning, it had gone viral. Comments flooded in. "Girl, you are not alone. Mine took my savings and ran. He should be ashamed. You're worth 10 of him. You built a man just for another woman to enjoy." Heartbreaking. It was both empowering and terrifying. My story was no longer mine alone, but it was finally out there. The post took on a life of its own within 48 hours. It had over 300,000 views. People from across the country, some even outside it, were tagging, commenting, and sharing. Jenna scrolled through the replies with wide eyes. "You just started a movement." I didn't feel powerful. I felt raw. Exposed. Like I turned my soul inside out and handed it to strangers. But then, something unexpected started happening. Women began ming me. Dozens at first, then hundreds. One wrote, "He did this to me." Two, "Different guy, same story. I was a helper. She got the proposal." Another, "My ex borrowed money for therapy. He bought a new PS5 and ghosted me." It was like shining a flashlight into a room I hadn't realized was full of people, each holding their own version of betrayal and shaking hands. And then it happened. A message from a name I hadn't seen in weeks. "Tyler." I stared at it for a long time before I opened it. "Claire, I saw your post. I can't believe you'd humiliate me like this. You've ruined everything." Serena's furious. "People at work are talking. You need to take it down. No apology. No remorse. Just damage control." I didn't respond. But I wasn't surprised. It was always about him. His reputation. His peace. His second chance. Even after all I'd done, I was still expected to protect him. Not anymore. Later that week, Serena posted a video defending him. Yes. The woman wearing my vacation and my engagement ring went online to defend the man who used me. She said, Claire's bitter. She's jealous. Tyler told me everything. She offered to help him. No one forced her. I watched the clip with my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. I wanted to throw my phone or scream. Or both. But instead, I took a breath. She wasn't the first woman to believe a liar, and heartbreak makes all of us say things we regret. I just hoped someday she'd realize it. Despite the backlash from Tyler's camp, support kept pouring in. People began tagging brands Serena collaborated with. They shared screenshots of my receipts. By week's end, 2 of her sponsorships had pulled out. One even issued a statement about not condoning financial abuse or deception. Jenna clinked her wine glass to mine and grinned. Karma's wearing heels tonight. I didn't smile because even if the world saw the truth, it didn't undo what I lost. Money could be rebuilt, but trust that was shattered beyond repair for the first time in weeks. I looked in the mirror and really saw myself, tired eyes, hollow cheeks, but a spine straighter than ever. Didn't recognize a woman staring back, and maybe that was the point. She wasn't the girl who begged for scraps anymore. She wasn't the girlfriend trying to prove she was worth loving. She was someone new, someone rising. But healing wasn't linear. One night, I found myself typing Tyler's name into Instagram again. His page was private now, probably flooded with hate. Or maybe he'd finally realized he wasn't the victim here. Either way, I exited the app and turned off my phone. I needed peace more than I needed closure. And peace wasn't something he could give me. Instead, I started journaling again. Not for the world. Not for clicks. Just for me. I wrote letters to my future self. To the girl I used to be. To the woman I hope to become. Each page reminded me that survival isn't just about breathing. It's about learning to live again. It had been nearly a month since the post went viral. I hadn't heard from Tyler again. No surprise there. Cowards don't come back to clean their mess. They just blame the stain on you. But the silence was finally peaceful. For the first time in years, my life wasn't orbiting someone else's chaos. No more panicked Venmo requests. No more late-night sob stories about dreams that just needed a little more funding. No more gaslighting wrapped in apologies. It was just me, and that was enough. I poured myself into work, into my friendships, into books I'd been meaning to read for years, but never had time for. I started walking again in the mornings, headphones in, rolled off, healing on. And slowly, the cracks began to close. Jenna said I laughed differently now, like someone who knows their worth. I didn't know how to respond to that. But deep down, I knew she was right. Then, one night while reorganizing my closet, I found the box, a show box buried behind an old winter coat. Inside, the bracelet Tyler gave me for our first anniversary movie, stubs from our second date, a crumpled, handwritten list titled our goals in his handwriting. But mostly my dreams. I sat cross-legged on the floor, holding that paper, heart clenched. At the top it said, 2023, get healthy, start a business, fall in love for real. The irony wasn't lost on me. He'd achieved exactly one of those. And it wasn't the one that included me. I almost threw it away. But instead, I folded it back neatly, placed it in the box and sealed it shut, not because I needed it, but because sometimes the past needs a burial, not a bonfire. A week later, I got a message from a journalist. She'd seen my post, wanted to interview me for a piece on financial manipulation in relationships. At first, I hesitated. Was I ready to reopen it all again? But something told me this was bigger than me now. So I agreed. We spoke over Zoom. She was kind, sharp, curious. She asked the hard questions. Did you ever feel like you were choosing him over yourself? I paused. Not at first, I said. At first, it felt like love. Like helping someone grow. But later, it felt like watering a dead plant and blaming myself when it didn't bloom. She nodded, eyes wide. That's powerful. The article came out 2 weeks later, The Price of Love. When romance becomes a transaction. I wasn't named, but the story was clearly mine, and once again, the internet responded. Even stronger this time. News outlets, podcasts, think pieces. Suddenly, my inbox was full of invites to speak, to write, to consult. I couldn't believe it. What started as heartbreak was becoming a movement. Jenna sat across from me at our favorite cafe, smiling over her cappuccino. You realize what you've done, right? You didn't just survive him. You exposed him. I shrugged. It wasn't about exposing him. It was about reclaiming me. She grinned. Exactly. But healing isn't just about reclaiming power. It's about forgiving yourself for the red flags you paint to green. It's about learning that being loyal to the wrong person doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And I was finally learning how to love that part of myself. 2 weeks passed. The world slowly moved on from my story. But I didn't. Not in the way people think healing works. It wasn't linear. It wasn't graceful some days. I still missed the version of Tyler I thought was real. The version that sent me voice notes when I was sick, that traced hearts on my wrist. When we held hands, that looked me in the eyes and said, "You make me better." That version didn't exist. But the grief for her, the me who believed he did, still lingered. One morning, I was cleaning my email inbox when I saw it. Subject, Maui photo rights request, BuzzFront Media. I blinked. BuzzFront? The viral pop culture site. I opened it. Heart racing. They were asking to license a photo. The one of Tyler proposing to Serena. The one I didn't take but technically pay for. They wanted my permission. Because I had shared the trip's receipts. Because I had documentation tying me to the resort. Because, in a strange twist of irony, the photo was now part of a storyline they were covering. I stared at the screen. "You will be credited as Claire M. Source and vacation financier." My stomach twisted. Was this justice or exploitation? Was I turning pain into content or reclaiming my narrative? I didn't know. But I clicked approve. Jenna thought it was hilarious. "You're basically a producer now." Imagine Tyler seeing your name under his engagement photo. I laughed, a real, unfiltered laugh. Poetic, isn't it? She nodded, almost Shakespearean. That night, I took a walk alone. The air was crisp. My cheeks flushed pink. For once, I didn't bring my phone, didn't check comments or DMS. Just walked. Each step felt like a soft goodbye. To the girl who overgave. To the woman who broke. To the survivor who spoke. And to the version of love I used to chase. At the park, I sat on a bench and watched a little girl feed birds. Her mother stood nearby, watching with soft eyes. There was so much gentleness in that scene. So much care in a world that had felt brutal lately. And for a second, I thought about the kind of love I wanted next. Not grand, not expensive. Not flashy or fed by followers. But safe. Love that didn't need rescuing. That didn't keep a tally. That didn't take more than it gave. In therapy, I learned something simple yet seismic. You don't have to bleed to prove your love. I used to think sacrifice was a language of commitment. Now I know boundaries speak louder, and self-respect, that's the most fluent dialect of all. I began journaling again that night. Not about Tyler, not about Serena, but about Claire. What she wanted, what she deserved, what she would never again settle for. And slowly, the journal filled with dreams that had nothing to do with being someone's plus one. I launched a blog. At first, it was just snippets, musings on heartbreak, recovery, resilience. But then people started sharing. Commenting. Connecting. One woman wrote, "You helped me leave a man who was draining me dry. Thank you." Another, "I saw myself in your words. I'm learning to say no again." And suddenly, the wound became a window. Through it, others could see themselves clearer. I didn't set out to be an advocate. I just didn't want to feel alone. But in showing up raw, I'd given others permission to do the same. And that was worth every scar. Winter crept in slowly, and with it, a stillness I hadn't felt in years. My apartment felt warmer. Not because of the heater, but because I finally belonged in it. Every throw blanket, every teacup, every candlelit corner felt like me. There was no man's hoodie on the chair. No pair of borrowed shoes by the door. No waiting for texts that never came. Only space. Only peace. Only me. The blog kept growing. People from all over began sharing their own financial heartbreak stories. Some gave up years to support a partner's dream. Some co-signed loans and got ghosted. Some stayed silent because they were ashamed. I wasn't surprised anymore. Love, when twisted the wrong way, can become a transaction, and in the worst cases, an emotional hostage situation. But finally, those stories were being told, and somehow, I'd become part of a much bigger healing. Then, out of nowhere, he returned, not in person, but in a DM. Tyler. Double quotes. "Hey Claire, I saw the blog. I've been doing a lot of thinking. Can we talk?" I stared at the message. My hands didn't tremble. My heart didn't race. Just nothing. The silence of true closure. I didn't reply, not because I was bitter, but because I had nothing left to give him. No rage. No explanation. No final speech. He'd become a chapter I had outgrown. Days later, he messaged again. "I know I hurt you, Serena, and it wasn't planned like that, but I wasn't in a good place. I want to make it right." Still, I said nothing, because making something right doesn't mean forcing your way back into the life you broke. Sometimes, true accountability means staying gone. I told Jenna. She didn't even flinch. "Block him." I smiled. I already did. She raised her mug to growth. Around that time, I received an invitation. A women's conference was being held in Chicago focused on emotional labor, money, and power in modern relationships. They wanted me to speak, not as a victim, But as a voice stopped, my jaw dropped. I almost declined. Imposter syndrome whispered, "You're just a girl who dated the wrong guy." But courage countered, "No, you're a woman who learned, and that makes you powerful." So I said yes. And 2 months later, I stood backstage, holding a mic. The room was packed. Women of all ages. Some alone. Some holding hands, all holding stories they hadn't told yet. I looked down at my notes, then up at the lights. And I began, "My name is Claire. And I once believed love meant fixing someone even if it broke me in the process." A hush swept through the room, but I learned something in the aftermath. Love shouldn't feel like debt, and you don't owe anyone your silence, your savings, or your soul. They leaned in, some took notes, some wiped tears. I kept going. "We talk about red flags, but we need to talk about green lies." The sweet words, the promises, the way someone can make you feel like the bad guy for setting boundaries. A standing ovation came at the end, but the real reward? Afterward, a woman my mother's age hugged me and whispered, "You just told the story I've carried for 30 years. That night in the hotel room, I stood in front of the mirror. Same face, new eyes. Eyes that no longer looked for validation in someone else's gaze. Eyes that didn't seek closure in another's confession. Eyes that saw me. And that was enough. The conference changed everything. Not overnight. Not in the kind of way movies show with fireworks and applause, but in quiet, irreversible ways. People started reaching out. College students, single moms, therapists, even lawyers. All of them said the same thing: "Your words made me feel seen." Somewhere in that momentum, I found something I didn't expect: purpose. Not the kind that fills your calendar or pads your resume, but the kind that grounds your roots you deep into the soil of who you are. I wasn't just a girl who got played. I was a woman who had survived betrayal and turned the ashes into advocacy. One evening, while editing a new blog post, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a card. "Sorry for everything. Thought you might want this back." It was a necklace, the one Tyler had once given me for our anniversary. I almost laughed. He thought I wanted a thing back, as if an apology could be worn around my neck like a trophy. I dropped it in a donation box the next day. Let someone else make a new memory with it. Mine were already burned. Then came an email that made me freeze. "Dear Claire, we'd love to feature you in our new documentary series." The sender? A major streaming platform. They were creating a docuseries about emotional and financial betrayal in relationships. My story had caught their attention. They wanted to tell it with me narrating. For the first time in months, fear crept back in. Did I really want the whole world to know everything? The debt, the proposal, the heartbreak. Would they pity me? Or worse, would they think I'd let it happen? I called Jenna. She answered on the first ring. I say, "Do it. Don't let shame keep the make. Take it back." I stared at the ceiling, letting her words soak in. She was right. This wasn't about Tyler anymore. This was about every girl who emptied her savings in the name of love. Every woman who whispered, "I can fix him," while drowning. Every Claire who thought pain was the price of connection. So I agreed, and filming began. It was raw. There were tears, long pauses, flashbacks I hadn't voiced out loud before. But the director was kind. The crew was mostly women. And when I watched the first cut, I didn't flinch. I didn't see a victim. I saw a survivor, a storyteller, and above all a rebuilder. When the series aired, the messages flooded in. "This is me. Thank you for your bravery. You just changed my life." And then a familiar name popped up in my inbox. Serena. I nearly deleted it. But something made me open it. "Claire, I owe you more than an apology. I owe you the truth." I sat up straight. She continued. "Tyler told me you had left him, that you were cold, emotionally abusive, that you never supported his dreams. I was foolish enough to believe him. And I realized now I was just his next narrative." I read the email twice. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was asking for clarity. "You didn't deserve any of it. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." I didn't reply. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I didn't hate her, because I'd once believed him. 2 weeks later, I saw a news article. Tyler's startup had collapsed. Investor fraud. Lawsuits. He was being investigated. And for the first time, I felt nothing. Not joy, not satisfaction. Just peace. Like I'd walked away from a house seconds before it collapsed. Like I'd trusted a whisper in my soul that said, "Leave now." One evening, after dinner with Jenna, we sat watching the sunset on her porch. "Do you think you'll ever date again?" she asked gently. I smiled. "Eventually. But this time, I'm not looking for someone to save, or someone to fix." "What are you looking for?" Then, I exhaled. "Someone who doesn't need me to shrink so they can shine." She raised her glass to that. Spring arrived like a quiet promise. I'd started sleeping with my windows cracked open again, letting the breeze slip in, soft and unannounced, like healing itself. My blog had evolved into something larger, not just stories of heartbreak and betrayal, But rebirth, rebuilding, resilience, I was now invited to write columns for two women's magazines. I hosted virtual workshops on emotional boundaries, even partnered with a nonprofit that helped women regain financial independence after toxic relationships. Sometimes I would reread the first post I ever wrote, just to remind myself how far I'd come. I paid off my boyfriend's debt, and he paid me back with betrayal. The pain in that line used to sting. Now it stood as proof that I could walk through fire and come out holding a pen instead of ashes. One evening after a long Zoom session, I received a message from an old coworker. Nathan. He had worked with me years ago in accounting. Quiet guy, smart, witty when he opened up. We shared vending machine snacks and Spotify playlists, but never anything more. His message was simple. Claire, I've been following your writing. Your strength is incredible. Would you ever want to grab a coffee sometime? No pressure? I stared at the screen, and for the first time in what felt like forever, my heart didn't race with fear. It fluttered with curiosity. We met that weekend at a small bookstore cafe downtown. He stood when I walked in, nervous smile, chamomile tea in hand. Still. Nathan, you look peaceful, he said. I laughed. It took a long time to earn that. We sat for 3 hours. No talk of exes. No deep dives into trauma. Just books, childhood memories. The best kind of coffee. At one point, he leaned in and said, you know, I always admired you back at work, but you seemed too far away, like you had your own orbit. I sipped my tea, smiling. Maybe I was in survival mode. And now, I looked out the window, where the sunlight hit the leaves just right. Now, I think I'm finally living. We didn't start dating right away. I didn't rush, because now I knew the difference between interest and investment, between chemistry and consistency, between charm and character. Nathan never love-bombed me. He didn't say all the right things, but he showed up. When I told him I had deadlines, he brought me snacks. When I told him about a triggering message, I didn't have to explain the pain twice. He listened, really listened. One day, I showed him my original blog draft, the one I never published. It was raw, sloppy, angry. This is where it started, I told him. He finished reading and looked up. I'm proud of her, and I'm lucky I get to know the woman she became. I didn't cry, but my heart cracked open just a little wider. Months passed. We weren't perfect, but we were honest. I still had moments, triggers, flashbacks, self-doubt, and Nathan never tried to fix them. He just sat beside me through them. Like a lighthouse doesn't rescue the ship, it guides it. One evening, while watching a documentary together, he turned to me and asked, do you still think about him? Tyler. I didn't hesitate. Sometimes, but not with anger or even sadness, just with clarity. Clarity, yeah. Like I'm grateful for what it taught me so I could recognize what love shouldn't feel like. He nodded. I hope one day I can be someone who reminds you of what love should feel like. I looked at him for a long second. Nathan, you already are. That night, I wrote a new blog post. I once funded a man's escape from me, and I thought that meant I wasn't enough. But now I know it meant I was too much for the wrong person, and just enough for the right one. I never got an apology from Tyler. Not a text, not in a mail, not a single word of explanation. But maybe that silence was the closure I didn't know I needed. Because not all stories end with confrontation, some just dissolve into the background, like a chapter you no longer reread. I used to believe that healing would look like revenge. That someday, I'd run into him at a grocery store looking miserable, broke and alone. That he'd see me glowing, laughing, thriving, and regret it all. But healing didn't come in the form of karma. It came quietly on a Tuesday morning, while sipping coffee and realizing I haven't thought about him in weeks. A year passed. I was now writing full time. My blog had grown to a community of over 50,000 women. We weren't just sharing heartbreak stories anymore. We were lifting each other, celebrating new beginnings, helping one another rewrite our worth. One reader messaged me, you helped me leave a man who kept me small. I finally feel like I can breathe again. I cried when I read it, because I remembered how suffocating it once felt to love someone who used your loyalty as a wallet and your kindness as a doormat. And now, I was the oxygen someone else needed to survive. Nathan and I moved in together that fall. Not because we rushed, but because it felt right. No grand proposal, no fireworks. Just one evening on the porch, a glass of wine and a quiet, want to build something real together? And I said yes. Not because I needed saving, but because I was already whole. And he wasn't here to fix me. He just fit beside me. Sometimes, I still get tagged in old posts about relationship horror stories. They don't sting anymore. They remind me of who I was and who I refused to remain. I even revisited Maui, not for revenge, not to chase ghosts, just to stand in the same sand where my trust was once buried, and realize I didn't leave broken pieces behind. I carried them with me. And rebuilt. I thought the ring in Tyler's proposal photo would haunt me forever. But one morning, while doing dishes, Nathan came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist and said, "You know what? I think we should get rings, but let's design them together. Something honest, something ours." And just like that, I knew it wasn't about the metal or the carats. It was about the meaning behind it, a promise that didn't glitter in photos, but endured in silence. In dishes and days filled with ordinary love. If I could go back and talk to the version of me crying in her car after seeing that proposal post, I'd whisper, "This isn't your ending. It's just the fire before the forge. You are not ruined, you're rising." The woman who once paid a man's debts, funded his dream vacation, and watched him propose to someone else, she became the woman who paid herself back in boundaries, in peace. In love that never asked her to shrink. Final lines. Sometimes the best investment is walking away and using that same heart to build your own paradise.